The sky above Metropolis rippled like a living wound. First came a low hum, a vibration that made skyscraper windows rattle and the air feel suddenly thin. Pedestrians clutched their ears as a shimmering, violet halo bloomed high above the daily planet globe. It wasn't a storm cloud, nor the opening of any earthly phenomenon. It was a psychic fracture, an interdimensional tear so immense it bent gravity itself. From that impossible rift, a figure stepped forward, armored, towering and wreathed in a faint, crackling aura of red and indigo. Onslaught had arrived. He was neither man nor mutant, but the fusion of some of Marvel's most dangerous minds. Professor Charles Xavier's unmatched telepathy, interlaced with Magneto's unyielding will, amplified by the cosmic potential of Franklin Richards and Nate Gray. His very presence pressed on the minds of every sentient being within 1,000 miles. Thoughts slowed, hearts raced. The city's collective consciousness screamed in silence. Onslaught ignored the chaos beneath him. His crimson eyes swept across this new universe, reading it as easily as one might flip through the pages of a book. This world thrummed with alien energies, Kryptonian signatures, magical residues, the faint quantum hum of a multiverse just slightly out of phase. He sensed the guardians who might oppose him, the Justice League's myriad champions scattered across the globe, the cosmic sentinels who patrolled beyond the stars. Yet none of them concerned him. He was here for something singular, evolution through conflict. Another plane, he murmured. His voice a chorus of Xavier's reason and Magneto's wrath. Another proving ground. Let them come. Far beneath the fractured heavens, something stirred in the depths of the earth. Deep below the crust, where no light had touched for eons, an ancient containment vault trembled. Its seals were forged in a bygone age of Krypton's exploratory hubris, adamantine alloys layered with fail-safes to restrain the unthinkable. But the psychic tremor from Onslaught's arrival was more than a mere earthquake. It was a multiversal summons, a challenge written into the fabric of reality. The creature within heard it. Doomsday's crimson eyes snapped open like coals igniting in the dark. Once a lifeless husk entombed after his last rampage across the stars, he now flexed against the chains of his prison. Memories of death after death flickered through his ancient mind, the laboratories of Krypton, where he had been birthed, the countless worlds that had tried and failed to end him, the taste of Superman's blood. Every defeat had only ever made him stronger. He existed for one purpose: to kill whatever dared call itself indestructible. The containment field flickered, sparked, and died. Up on the surface, seismic waves rolled through the city like the heartbeat of a waking god. Streets cracked open. Glass towers groaned as their foundations shifted. People screamed and fled as a pillar of molten rock erupted into the night sky. From the inferno, Doomsday emerged, bone protrusions gleaming, muscles coiled with unimaginable force. He threw back his head and roared, a sound like tectonic plates grinding together. Onslaught turned his gaze downward and smiled. If such a thing could be called a smile, he felt the creature's mind, or rather the vast emptiness where a mind should be. There was no fear, no reasoning, only endless violent instinct. Fascinating, a being beyond thought, immune to persuasion, driven by a single imperative: destruction. "You are perfection," Onslaught said, his voice carrying across the miles like a psychic broadcast. "Come to me." Doomsday needed no invitation. The monster leapt, his first bound covering a mile, then another, each impact cracking the earth like distant thunder. Within seconds, he was a dark comet streaking across the skyline, each landing leaving craters that belched fire. Helicopters caught glimpses of him, only to be hurled aside by the shockwaves of his passage. Onslaught descended slowly, as though gravity itself bent to his whim. Around him, the air shimmered with psychic pressure. Buildings groaned and warped under his telekinetic field. He reached into the minds of Metropolis's citizens, soothing them into a forced slumber so that none would witness the cataclysm about to unfold. When the two forces met on the outskirts of the ruined city, reality itself seemed to pause. Dust hung motionless. Sound died. Onslaught's voice echoed directly into the monster's rudimentary consciousness. You are rage given form. I am thought made flesh. Let us test which truth endures. Doomsday answered with action. He struck the ground with a force that sent a shockwave racing outward like a tsunami of stone and fire. Onslaught raised a single hand, and the shockwave shattered against an invisible wall of psychic might. But Onslaught felt something else beneath the brute force, a relentless drive that shrugged off his mental probes like pebbles thrown at a fortress. No fear, no hesitation, only the certainty of violence. A rare flicker of intrigue lit the Psionic Titan's mind. He strengthened his shields and prepared to unleash the first of many tests. The air between them hummed with the promise of cosmic war, two unstoppable forces drawn together by inevitability. Above, the multiverse watched and held its breath. The night sky churned with violet lightning as the two titans closed the distance. Doomsday struck first, a living missile of bone and fury. His opening punch shattered the sound barrier and detonated the ground beneath them, sending shockwaves that rippled for miles. Asphalt fractured like paper. Skyscrapers in downtown Metropolis trembled as if caught in an earthquake. Onslaught did not flinch. His telekinetic shield flared, a prism of scarlet light, and absorbed the blow with a deafening crack. The force of impact would have flattened a mountain, yet the psionic barrier held, rippling like disturbed water. Onslaught countered instantly, lifting his armored hand and releasing a telekinetic blast so dense it bent gravity. The explosion hurled Doomsday backward through an abandoned freight yard, scattering shipping containers like children's toys. But the monster was already moving. Before the last container hit the ground, Doomsday leapt again, faster than most eyes could track. He slammed into Onslaught mid-air, driving them both through a cluster of warehouses. Metal and concrete erupted in a blossom of fire. Onslaught emerged from the rubble with his psychic armor scorched, but his mind remained razor-sharp. He probed Doomsday's consciousness and found nothing, a void, a perfect absence of reason or fear. It was not simply that the creature lacked thought, it was that he defied it. No emotion to manipulate, no memories to twist, just raw, instinctive destruction. Fascinating, Onslaught mused, even as he spun a lattice of magnetic force around his foe. He tightened the construct like a cosmic vise. Let us see how you handle true pressure, he whispered, his voice echoing through the psychic plane. The magnetic cage compressed with the strength of collapsing stars. Steel beams nearby bent toward the gravitational singularity. For a heartbeat, Doomsday was pinned. Then bone spurs erupted from his elbows and shoulders, glowing white-hot from friction. He flexed once, and the lattice shattered in a cascade of psychic sparks. Onslaught recoiled, more surprised than hurt. You learn, he murmured, sensing the faint shift in Doomsday's aura. Already the monster's physiology was adapting, hardening against the magnetic manipulation. Time was not Onslaught's ally. The battle escalated into a blur of force and counterforce. Doomsday slammed Onslaught into the ground hard enough to carve a crater 100 feet across. Onslaught responded with a psionic wave that inverted gravity for miles, hurling debris, vehicles, and even fractured skyscraper segments into the air. They fought amid a storm of levitating rubble, colliding again and again like living gods. At one point, Doomsday seized a floating monorail car and swung it like a club, the impact ringing across the night like a cathedral bell. Onslaught caught it mid-swing, disintegrating the steel with a thought, and struck back with a mental assault so intense the air itself screamed. For a fraction of a second, Doomsday staggered, his eyes flickered with something almost like confusion. Onslaught dove deeper, threading psychic filaments through the creature's primal cortex. He unleashed an astral barrage, visions of endless voids, oceans of silence, the cold eternity of non-existence. Doomsday roared, a sound that shattered windows miles away. The psychic assault faltered. Adaptation had already begun. What might have crushed a Kryptonian mind in seconds merely slowed the beast. Onslaught's crimson gaze narrowed. Then we end this another way. He stretched his consciousness beyond the material, reaching for the wellspring of reality-warping energy inherited from Franklin Richards. Space around them rippled like liquid. Time itself seemed to dilate. The battlefield, a ruined stretch of city and wasteland, folded inward as if reflected in 1,000 shattered mirrors. Suddenly Doomsday found himself standing in an endless white void. No sky, no ground, only a horizonless expanse. Onslaught's voice filled the nothingness, resonant and omnipresent. Here, there is no evolution, no death to empower you, only the truth of my will. Doomsday lunged, striking at shadows, but every attack fell into infinite distance. Onslaught's astral form towered above him, a colossus of thought and light. You cannot adapt to what does not exist, the psionic giant intoned. Yet even here the monster refused surrender. Bone spurs sliced through the void itself, tearing cracks in the illusory dimension. Reality bled through, black streaks of the real universe leaking back into the false plane. Onslaught focused every ounce of his might. The white void pulsed, shrinking around Doomsday like a tightening fist. The creature roared and flashed, each movement threatening to undo the construct. But the psionic titan was relentless. He layered telekinetic fields atop reality warps, folding dimension upon dimension until the monster's movements slowed, then stilled. Finally, with a sound like a collapsing star, the void sealed shut. Doomsday's final roar faded into silence. He was not dead. True death for such a creature was impossible, but bound in a pocket of folded reality, cut off from the cycle of death and rebirth that fueled his evolution. Onslaught re-emerged into the night sky of Metropolis, his armored figure haloed in psychic light. The ruined city lay quiet, suspended debris settling like ash after a volcanic eruption. He felt the strain of the victory. Doomsday's resistance had been unlike any foe he had faced, an unending storm of raw survival instinct. For a moment, Onslaught simply hovered above the battered earth, the echo of the monster's fury still reverberating in his mind. Narrowly, he admitted to himself, but thought prevails. He cast one final glance at the invisible prison pocket where Doomsday struggled in silent rage. The creature would adapt, eventually, perhaps eons from now. The void might crack, but tonight, Onslaught's will reigned supreme. The multiverse exhaled, the storm abated, and in the uneasy calm, Onslaught turned his gaze to the stars, already seeking the next challenge worthy of a mind that had just subdued the unstoppable.